Hello and welcome to another episode of What Did I Just Watch? With your host, as always, Kyle McLemore. This week we'll be recapping and reviewing the latest addition to the Transformers series. That's right, it's Transformers: Rise of the Beast. And before we get too far along in the review, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as it's much appreciated and it definitely helps the show stay alive. And if you still haven't seen Transformers ROTB and would still like to, make sure you pause now and return later, as there may be several spoilers up ahead. That's right, this is your official spoiler alert! Transformers: Rise of the Beast is the latest addition to the Transformer franchise, and it continues the trend of mixing up the Transformer timeline. Because Transformers ROTB is simultaneously a prequel and a sequel. Set in the early 90s, it's a prequel to what we consider the modern Transformer movies, but it's also a sequel to the 2018 film Bumblebee, which was set in the late 80s. And they do a very, very blink and you'll miss it reference to that Bumblebee film with some offhand remark with Optimus is like, yeah, I know Bumblebee, you've met some cool humans anyway. And that's all the reference we did to Bumblebee. Rise of the Beast is directed by Stephen Caple Jr., who is a good fit for this type of a franchise, having previously directed Creed 2, which is a very similar action-packed, very stylized type of movie. And although the main leads in this film are relatively unknowns, Rise of the Beast does bring together some big Hollywood A-listers to lend their voices to the Transformers. Some of the big names being Pete Davidson, who lends his voice to Mirage, as well as Peter Dinklage playing our big villain, Scourge, as well as a few legends like Michelle Yeoh playing Airazor and the great Ron Perlman stopping by as Optimus Primal. And let's talk about some of the performances in the film, starting with our main lead, Anthony Ramos. Relatively new to the scene, Anthony Ramos without a ton of filmography before this movie, and this one really put him through the gauntlet as he is shouldering a ton of responsibility in this movie. He's not only being our emotional connection in the movie, he's got like a dying little brother he's taking care of, so we've got like our emotional connection. But then he's also being like our main driving force of the humor. He's shouldering a lot of the humor in the movie, while also being our main action lead. So he's like being emotionally connected, he's being really silly and funny, and then he's also running around being an action hero. And he's doing a good job. Anthony Ramos is doing a very good job of running around being our action hero, of doing a great job of reacting to what you know is so much of like not there, right? Of doing a great job of reacting to all this transforming around him when you know it's just green screen city. Dominique Fishback also appearing as our only other like human physical person in the movie. Not a ton of filmography for her either. You might recognize her from maybe Project Power, the Netflix film. If anything, I feel like they didn't give Dominique enough to do. Like when she's introduced as like a really, really intelligent, she knows more than all the people running the museum. She knows all this stuff. She's introduced as a really smart character, but I feel like they don't really give her much to do other than just like draw symbols the whole movie. Like she just like copies symbols the entire movie. That's like her big thing, is that like she'll look like, oh look, a circle and two dots, let me write that down. And it's like, that's all you're gonna have her doing? That's all you're gonna have this character do? You introduced her as this very strong, intelligent female lead, and it's like all she's doing, she's not doing anything now, which is a shame because Dominique is good. Dominique comes off as very authentic and charming and charismatic, and yet is completely not used in this movie at all. And let's not forget about our voice actors either. The amazing, the legendary Ron Perlman and the amazing, legendary Michelle Yeoh, both lending their voices to the Maximals. But did they really need to? Is him or Michelle Yeoh doing or like anything in this film? Like they're just kind of talking, and it just sounds like they were given that kid's echo microphone to just like talk into. The best voice acting in the film probably goes to the two Petes, Peter Dinklage and Pete Davidson, as they're the only ones who I feel like they're really acting, like the ones who are really like changing or really altering or really performing in their voices. And let's talk about some of the action and visuals in ROTB. Overall, the visuals in Rise of the Beast are relatively good, and there are some solid action sequences all throughout the film. Not to mention our newest addition, the Maximals, also have a great aesthetic as well. The way that they move is really cool, watching the cheetah walk around. Pretty cool visuals. Although there is one thing noticeably missing from this film. There is one key factor missing from this Transformers movie, and that's transforming. I think we can all agree that the main selling point of this film was the introduction of the Maximals, was the incorporation of Beast Wars into this film, and yet I feel like the filmmakers missed a huge factor of what makes it so cool, and that is the transforming from animal into robot. The fact that they stay in their animal forms for 99.9% of this movie is insane. And when they finally do transform, it is literally a blink and you miss it moment. They transform, and it's like, even as they're transforming, they're doing like somersaults and backflips. So when they are finally in their robot form, they're doing like a somersault, so you can't even get like a clear look at them. It was honestly shocking how much you don't get to see the Maximals turn into like their robot forms at all, dude. They're just in gorilla mode or rhino mode the entire movie, which is like, okay, that's part of what makes them cool, but it's also like if you saw a Transformer movie and Optimus just stayed in his truck form the entire film, and then for like 1 second at the very end he was like into his robot form for just like a moment, and then just like right back in the truck. And then, if you want to talk about completely wasted opportunities, the cheetah guy gets like one half of a line the whole movie. He just says like, hey, watch out. And like, that's it, the whole movie. Rhino Dude doesn't say jack the entire film. Rise of the Beast also suffers from the prequel dilemma, where they have these characters put in danger or life-threatening situations who we know exist further down the timeline, so there's no real danger in the present setting of the prequel. Example, Bumblebee totally dies in this movie, but it's like, who cares, dude? Who cares about Bumblebee dying? Because we know 1,000% he's coming back, because he's got 40 other movies down the line that he exists in, so there's no way he's dying in this Rise of the Beast movie. And so let's hit Transformers Rise of the Beast with our overall rating. Overall, most of the performances are mediocre at best. Most of the performances are like just phoning it in, is kind of like the feeling. And then like the insane lack of like robots transforming in this movie is so wild for a Transformers movie. To keep them in animal mode is like a crime, dude. Like, what was the point of introducing all these amazingly cool Beast War characters and then like not even having them shine in any kind of way at all? You would think that with the introduction of like the entire catalog that is Beast Wars, with all these like bugs and animals and fish and who knows, like across the entire animal kingdom, and yet almost none are introduced, and then the ones that are introduced are only introduced in their animal form, so you only get half, dude. And as we mentioned before, there is no drama, there is no fear that any of these characters aren't going to make it, because we know all these characters exist later in the timeline. If anything, it just adds to the crazy confusion of the Transformers timeline. So it's like, okay, so we know Optimus and Bumblebee and all these characters exist for like 7 more movies, but for some reason, none of the animals exist. So it's like, what? You're introducing all these characters and new people, but then also they don't exist like 5 years later down the Transformer timeline. Like, it's packing on a lot of confusion, which is very like on brand for the Transformer franchise. Overall, we're gonna hit Transformers Rise of the Beast with a D+. And then you want to talk about making a franchise even more confusing. You want to talk about making a timeline and a franchise just even more entangled and just like convoluted and weird. Let's talk about the ending, where they just shoehorn that G.I. Joe thing, dude. They just like randomly just whoop. The way that they just slip it in like so under the radar. The way that they just like last minute. And yeah, so Transformers is pretty cool. By the way, we're starting G.I. Joe. See ya. Like, wait, what? If you felt differently about Transformers Rise of the Beast, feel free to comment down below, and if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe as it's much appreciated. I am your host as always, Kyle McLemore, and we'll see you next time at the movies.